Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to talk about arthropods. Specifically, we're going to focus mainly on insects, but we will talk about some ticks as well as some mites. So, arthropods are talked about even though they are not microscopic, and we study them in microbiology because they tend to be vectors of a lot of different diseases. So they can be either a mechanical vector or they can be a biological vector. So a mechanical vector is just like what it says. It just moves a pathogen from one surface to another surface. So something like a fly landing on raw chicken, taking a little bit of food and getting that salmonella on his little leggies, and then flying over and landing on your potato salad. He's just transferred the salmonella from the raw chicken to the potato salad. That would be a mechanical vector. A biological vector is one where the pathogen actually uses the vector as part of the life cycle. So the pathogen actually has to replicate inside of the organism, the vector. So that would be a biological vector then. So an example there, and I think my favorite example is, or my best example, is the Anopheles mosquito is the definitive host of Plasmodium. And so what that means is Plasmodium protozoans get into the Anopheles mosquito and reproduce sexually. And then the offspring move up and get into the vector's glands. And when the vector, the mosquito, bites a human, the offspring flood the blood of the human, and then they get into the liver and into the red blood cells, and then they asexually reproduce. Um, so we have vectors that oftentimes will bite animals like rats or other animals, and the animal is a reservoir of some infection, some pathogen. And inside of that animal, that pathogen doesn't cause such serious disease, but inside of humans, it can cause some major disease. An example here is plague. So, plague bacteria, Yersinia pestis, they have a reservoir inside of the rat. And fleas will bite the rats, and when the flea gets the pathogen in its body, it gets sick. It can't swallow anymore because the pathogen fills its gullet. And so basically, it traps any blood. The blood can't go down into the stomach of the flea, and so the flea will end up vomiting. And so what happens then when it vomits, it pushes the bacteria into another host. And so that's how Yersinia pestis gets transmitted from a rat to a human. So that would be another mechanical vectoring because the Yersinia pestis does not replicate inside of the flea. So the most common type of vector is an insect, and the most common type of insect is a fly. A mosquito is a type of fly. So mosquitoes have a long proboscis, this long structure here that pokes into the skin of a human or of an animal. It doesn't have to be a human, just of an animal. And it drinks the blood, okay? So here are the salivary glands. I told you that once the protozoan replicates sexually, the offspring will move up to the glandular tissue into these salivary glands, and then when it bites another animal like a human, the pathogen will move in through that proboscis. Mosquitoes don't just transmit malaria, they transmit many viral infections too, like yellow fever, dengue fever, and West Nile virus. Fleas. Fleas are a wingless insect. They can't fly, obviously. They have no wings, but they do jump very high. In general, fleas don't cause a lot of problems. They're more of a nuisance. They cause a lot of itching, if anything, but they can spread plague disease. Plague is a gram-negative bacterial species known as Yersinia pestis, and it killed, a fourth of Europe in past centuries. Fleas will pick up the plague bacteria when they bite a rat, and then the bacterium will block the digestive tract of the flea. And so the flea will try to bite another host, but when it bites another host, it isn't able to get nutrients because of the blockage, and that causes the flea to vomit back the blood that comes in, and when the blood goes back into the new host, but the bacteria also go into the new host. Lice are another wingless insect. Lice are unable to jump, but they are good at holding on to hair. So they have appendages that allow them to hold on to hair. And so we have different types of lice. We have head lice, we have body lice, we have pubic lice. And each form has a different appearance and structure to adapt to the environment that they live in. Head lice tend to be, they don't actually spread any disease, but they can cause secondary infections by the itching that they cause. They're more often psychologically detrimental because people that have head lice, or if they have head lice in the family, they're stressing out over the disease. Body lice, on the other hand, transmit different diseases. Examples would be trench fever, or epidemic typhus, or relapsing fever. I don't think there's a relaxing fever. The different bacteria that are spread from the body lice can cause these different diseases. And then we have pubic lice. And so I think I have a beautiful picture. Hold on. If it comes up. Hello. Can't get it to pop. There we go. Here you can see what body lice look like versus pubic lice. They look, and if someone had pubic lice, a lot of times it would be said to have crabs. It looks like a little microscopic crab. And then there's the head lice. Head lice and body lice have very similar structures. Body lice don't live on the body. They live in clothing, and they tend to be associated with very close quarters, and not having good hygiene, or not having the ability to have good hygiene, like not being able to wash your clothes on a daily basis. Head lice actually are a sign of, this sounds crazy, but head lice don't like dirty hair. So if someone has head lice, usually that means that they have clean hair, because head lice can't live very effectively in someone's hair who is very dirty. Because of that, in the 80s, I don't think many people had lice, because we had so much hairspray and like different products in our hair that nothing could really survive, I don't think. We were like, I would use in my own hair, half a bottle of Aquanet just to hold my hair in its position. So the next structure, the next organism is the arthropod, or not the arthropod, I'm sorry, is the tick. So a tick is a type of arachnid. It has 4 pairs of legs, a fused thorax, and abdomen. So it's no longer, we're not talking about insects. They live in low vegetation and they wait for people, for animals to walk by. They're not very specific. Ticks will bite anything. You might have a deer tick or a dog tick or whatever, but they don't really care. They're not very specific. If it's a tick, ticks will bite almost any type of mammal. Their mouth parts burrow into the skin, and then they sit there and they're basically ectoparasites. They drink your blood and then they fall off when they're done. Some ticks don't cause any diseases, but some can pass certain diseases on. So Dermacentor andersoni is a wood tick that transmits rickettsia, which is what causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And the serious one that we are always worried about is the deer tick, Ixodes scapularis, transmits Lyme's disease, which is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi. So if you have a tick infection, a tick bite, the best thing to do is to pull the tick off of you by taking tweezers and putting the tweezers right next to the skin, grabbing onto the tick and then pulling straight up. If you do that in a nice, easy, not yanking, then that can pull the mouth parts directly out of the body and the tick won't be dead. You then can dispose of the tick and clean the wound. A lot of times that can keep you from getting any type of infection. We have mites, which are another type of arthropod. Similar to spiders, they're basically microscopic spiders. They're very fast moving. They tend not to cause a lot of damage to humans, but they can. An example of a mite that we all live with is dust mites. Dust mites live on shed skin cells. They don't transmit diseases, but they can transmit allergies. Another mite that we all live with is Demodex. Demodex lives in our skin. It lives in the different oil glands and hair follicles. And it tends not to cause many problems. Again, more of that commensalism going on, but could potentially be associated with certain types of disorders like rosacea. But there are some mites that do cause problems. So chiggers are mite larvae that get into your skin and they die when they get into your skin because we are a dead-end host for them. But while they are in our skin, they cause intense itching. Another example of a mite that causes problems is Scarcoptes scabii, which causes the disease scabies. Scabies, so here's Demodex. I told you Demodex lives in our skin, kind of like a little adorable little puppy dog there that's living in our skin. That's chiggers. And so scabies occurs when Sarcoptes scabii gets into your skin and it burrows in your skin, under your skin, causing severe rash and itch that's typically associated with the different joint areas. So you'll see them in different around different joints. Scabies is very transmissible, so it is able to spread from one individual to another. You typically see scabies in areas where you have individuals living in close quarters. And it can be treated very similar to how we treat lice. You have to have a special wash, and then you have to wash all the bedding and all the clothing of the individual. So here's an example of the different arthropods. I didn't talk about every single arthropod. I talked about a few, like I talked about the sandflies. I talked about tsetse flies. Well, I talked about the black fly. I thought it was a black sand fly is what I always call it. I talked about the mosquitoes. I've talked about fleas, lice, and ticks. So I actually talked about them all, haven't I? And then I included your mites in there as well. This is the end of the lecture, so I'm going to stop here and I will post this video in just a few minutes. Bye.